So we're ready to call this to order. All right, I call to order the Lake Mills City
Recording
Council.
is on.
Somebody has their mic or speaker really loud out there. The Lake Mills City Council for May 19th, 2020. Let's have the roll call, please.
Mr. Fields,
Here.
Mr. Foster,
Here.
Ms. Schmidt,
Here.
and Mr. and Mrs. Fritsch previously informed staff that they'd be unavailable for this evening's meeting.
Okay, that moves us on to the Pledge of Allegiance. So those of you that can rise, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
nation under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks, everybody. That brings us to the correction and approval of the City Council meetings of May 5th, 2020. Do we have a motion of adoption as written or corrections?
So move.
Second.
All right. Been moved and seconded. Let's have a vote.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
motion passed 3-0.
All right, correspondence. We do have somebody in the audience here today, and I'm not sure if there's anybody else online.
There is.
Yeah, it looks like it. It looks like there's quite a few people on today. That's nice. The public is encouraged to address the council this time regarding items on the agenda. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, you're asked to hold your comments until the hearing. Public comments may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. The state's open meeting law discourages actions by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and state your name and address when starting your comments. And for those that are in the audience here, fill out and sign the sheet provided on the podium. For people online, please type your name and address in the chat feature. Oh, sheesh. Thank you. Somebody caught me. We are on correspondence, so I guess I jumped the gun here. Does anybody have anything as part of correspondence that they'd like to bring up at this time? Steve or?
I have several. Yep, I had several emails. I bet you close to 15, 20 of them. The Tyranena Park, the bike pass over there. The vast majority of them were positive. They want us to continue. At a couple of negative where they'd like to see us cut them back. But we're going to be discussing it at the Parks meeting here in a couple of weeks. And I also had one email on the potential garbage pickup contract coming up. Somebody asking some questions about it. And I did receive one email from Scott from the trailer park inviting me to attend their meeting next month, just to answer some questions for them. So that'd be it for me.
Thanks, Steve.
Mr. Fields, was the trailer park for Sandy Beach Trailer Park?
Sandy Beach.
Okay, thank you.
I received an email communication about schools and when they're going to open up. And I also received an email about the potential for opening for requests for proposals for our garbage collection.
Thanks, Vicki. Yeah, I've also received the email about the garbage collection as far as our RFPs opening up, and I also received one concerning the possibility of adding, what was it? Recycles for every week pickup. And then we also had the email concerning the boat launches down at Sandy Beach, and that may come up later on another agenda item. Is there anything else? All right, now we can go to questions and public comment. Now I'm back on track again. Yeah, thanks, Steve. All right, let's read this again. Why not? Questions and public comment. The public is encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, you're asked to hold your comments until the hearing. Public comments may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. The state's open meeting law discourages actions by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and state your name and address when starting your comments, and fill out the sign-in sheet provided. For people online, please type your name and address in the chat feature. And if we have somebody in the audience here, we'll take that person first. Are you here to speak? No. Okay. So we will have Steve, if you can tell who those folks are, or figure out who's wants to talk.
The Neil Shade would like to speak, I think.
Yep.
He provided us with a letter and he provided it to the clerk. So she has the information and his name and address already. So Neil, if you'd like to speak at this time, go ahead.
Certainly. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Neil Shade. I live at 516 College Street here in Lake Mills. The reason I'm coming today to read this letter aloud to you is that we have a tremendous amount of activity going on at Sandy Beach, and this particular topic should probably be included in discussions around how Sandy Beach proceeds in the future. So I'll start off. Good day. About 40 years ago, my wife Colleen moved to Lake Mills with her family. She lived here throughout her childhood and graduated from Lake Mills High School in 1989. She continued to live here as she pursued her nursing degree until we met and were married in 1994. We stayed in the area for a few years, moved away, and returned in 2007 to raise our daughter. We have enjoyed Lake Mills throughout our own daughter's school years, and we continue to live here today. Further, we have a wonderful small business in Lake Mills, providing homes to more than 20 families. We greatly enjoy all that Lake Mills has to offer, including much of our prosperity. Anyone who lives in Lake Mills will tell you that one of the greatest features of our community is Rock Lake. In addition, residents will tell you that the ability to have a boat slip on the lake is a very difficult luxury to come by if you don't already own property on the lake. At this time, the city of Lake Mills has more than a dozen, actually 25 boat slips under its management located at Sandy Beach. In addition, those slips have piers and lifts that are also maintained by the city for an annual charge. With all this discussion around the future of Sandy Beach, I believe it's time to discuss the method of allocating all of those prized boat slips a little more justly to the year-long residents of the city of Lake Mills. We all deserve a right to those valuable assets as taxpayers, but also as good citizens and stewards of our community. I'm requesting that the current waiting list method be reviewed and discussed in an open forum as to its validity and fairness to all. The reality that a Lake Mills citizen will get a Packers ticket before they get a boat slip is not acceptable. Please consider getting this resolved and corrected to be fair to all. who have the desire to have a precious vote slip. Kind regards, Neil and Colleen Shade.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
I don't think that any of the other ones are for public correspondence. They're for agenda items. Do you have anything, Alyssa, that you would like to say, or are you waiting for an agenda item? Apparently she's having a drink. Okay. No one else will be for correspondence. I did, Misty provided me with the current criteria for the boat lift rental. I've sent that all to you. That's what we've been using for at least 30 years. We did modify it a little bit when Rudy got the resident designation changed. But this has been in place that long, so it doesn't hurt to bring it up as an item that you guys may want to discuss and review.
Yeah, and we can talk about that for future agendas. It's something that there's no reason we couldn't look at it. Was that the same document that you sent me, Misty? The same one? Okay. Okay, thanks, Steve.
Yep.
That, I guess we're gonna move on to the city manager's report, and I do like the format with the information you provided us this time. This very helpful. So it's all you.
All right, well, I've provided the cash reports for the city and the utilities for April and March. That information's all been updated. We had to, well, we didn't have to, but we get an S&P rating for our bonds. And we again came in with a AA minus, which is a pretty high rating for a city our size. And obviously the management report was very favorable. So if anybody tells you that our financial management isn't good, that's not true. It's very high and a very high quality. And we've had reports of this between the auditor's report and the bond ratings for 20 years. And I can provide information that goes back on me for 35 years, which is as long as I've been in the profession. I've always had a very high rating on financing and budgeting and never had any issues where I was in trouble over any of those issues. Other than that, I don't have anything unless you have any questions. We are working on reopening probably in the first full week of June. There are some things that we're not going to fully open for a while yet, but City Hall will be open. We're going to follow CDC and WEDC guidelines. I know that there are some questions out there about certain items, but we checked with our insurance company. I've also talked with or got information from a lawyer from the National Lawyers Association that says if you can do searches at airports and in courtrooms, you can do searches when they come in. And if you can require shoes and shirts, you can require masks. So we're going to kind of look at that. I don't think we'll require masks, but we'll definitely have shields up. We'll have very limited access, probably one window open, and you'll probably get to see one person, and then we'll have to schedule or at least take time to be able to set up so that you can get in to see somebody. Other than that, are there any questions?
No, and that's a good thing to point out. While we can set restrictions like that, so can personal businesses.
Yes.
So somebody asks you to wear a mask or leave, do the right thing. This shouldn't get to a fighting match or any altercation over something like this. But now, if they stop you walking down the street, well, that's on you. Do what you got to do. But private business owners and cities can make up these rules, and really the only thing they can do is not let you in to their building if you refuse to wear it. So,
Right. As noted by the league, we still have full control over our facilities for public health, safety, and welfare. Um, there were some constitutional issues that were discussed, but based on history and where we're at with other types of things such as being able to scan people for entering a courtroom and those types of things, they definitely tipped in our favor. We talked to our insurance company. They were comfortable with those suggestions based on W's EDC and with the position of the county's health department. The county's health department has recommendations, but they do highly recommend that everybody use those processes. And so based on that and our ability to control our facilities, we're going to head down that road. But meetings such as this have to be open.
Yep.
And we can't. I don't know that we want to make that effort, but as we have done, we keep them very socially distant, and we keep the minimum amount of people in that room. So it's set up more for that than probably the rest of our operations. So the only other one there are two that I'm a little bit concerned about. One is the library. There's a lot of browsing, so people touching a lot of things, and then you can get a lot of people in there at one time. That may be a problem. And then the fire department for training, but we've kind of worked through some processes there where they do their training out in the truck bays and they keep their distance, and people who are willing to wear masks. In fact, we may provide everyone with masks. So those are some of the items, but we've worked up. Every department has worked up now a set of policies on how they're going to interact with the public.
yep. Yeah, and the only way the public will truly get in trouble is if they start altercations, because then the police can be involved. But obviously, we don't want to ever get to that point. So,
Right.
If somebody has a rule for their building for you to come in there, just please abide by their rulings. Thanks, Steve. Was that it? Does anybody have anything for Steve? Vicky, Steve, do you have anything? No? Okay.
No,
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I like that format. Moves us on to item 8, council business. A is we're going to have a discussion on bulk pickup, and this is just a discussion, so I don't think there shouldn't be any motions or anything like that. It's just that I know that I forget his name. The president of the company called me last week.
Brian?
Brian asking how things were going, and he mentioned that they had moved their bulk pickup back to Mondays instead of Thursdays, and I think that was a recommendation coming from you, Steve.
Yes, but there had been several comments, and Diane had called and talked to me as well as you, and internally the staff was in agreement that picking up on Monday had a lot of benefits because most people are cleaning out on a weekend, and being able to set it out on Sunday night had advantages over trying to get someone in to help you get it out on a Wednesday night. The reason we had moved to Thursday was we'd had a lot of people who weren't calling in. If you remember last March, we talked about that.
Yep.
And so what they did was they had their drivers take pictures of all the bulk that was out there. And then they sent those pictures to the administrative staff, and the administrative staff sent that to the bulk pickup people. And then on Thursday, they were able to come out and pick up all those sites. And then they left notices for the people who were setting out bulk without calling in. They also were contacting the neighborhood service officer, and he was going out and having conversations and providing ordinances and information on how to comply. We've had very few out of compliance people. Some people are setting it out early, but they are calling in. So we felt comfortable, and I recommended to Brian, actually Austin, that he should start looking at switching back and And so I was glad that he contacted you and decided to do that.
Yeah, he said they were switching back, and then was asking about the future of this. And I did bring up the fact that some folks here in the city had asked for, every week for a recycle pickup. And he was saying it would probably cost, I don't remember what he said, like $1 something extra.
$1.50
Yeah, something like that.
per unit
Per
per
unit,
month.
per month, exactly. So I don't have a good vision on that, whether something like that is needed. I know at my house, we could use it every week, but that's just my house, and my wife recycles everything. So that's probably on us.
We do too. And what Brian suggested to me is you can request a larger bin.
Oh, okay.
And so if you're having issues with filling your recycling bin up fast, they will provide a larger quart, cart. And generally that covers most people. There are still a few people that go over on a regular basis. But I don't know that it's enough to justify having everybody get it on a weekly basis rather than bi-weekly basis.
Yeah.
Actually, in my house, we could go bi-weekly with the garbage and weekly with the recycling.
Yes. That's the same way with my house. And I don't know how what is the best way to find that out, if something like that would even benefit the majority of the people in the city. Is that something we want to look at or if we decide we're going to put out an RFP for a new provider?
There is actually a company that's been contacting me that does surveys called Polco.
Yeah.
And they might be willing to do one or two for us at a very minimal cost for us to see the product.
Yeah.
And then we could make a decision, and maybe this is one of those items we'd be willing to do that with.
Yeah. Depending on the cost. Yeah, it may be, because right now it's sort of a blind spot for the most of us. We don't hear a whole lot, so we don't know whether or not it's working great, and nobody's saying anything because it's working great, or everybody is just at a point where they don't think anybody will listen, so they don't call us. I don't know. What do you think, Steve or Vicky?
Yeah, maybe doing a survey would be a good idea, just to find out what people's thoughts are on it. And if we do decide to go with some kind of request for proposals, maybe we would want to have a lot of different ways that somebody could make their proposals, so that we could pick and choose and decide what it is we want to do. But I think a survey is the best way to go at first.
Okay. Steve, do you have any?
I agree with Vicky. I have used the bulk pickup once this spring and it went really well. So, and I haven't heard anybody or any neighbors complaining about the system way it's set up now. So right now, no news is good news.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's more than we had. I know I'm one of those folks that I refuse to call. I just don't like the system the way it is myself. So I don't put anything out. It took me almost 6 months to get the cardboard out of my garage, because I sat there and cut it up and put it in week by week into the recycle bin. So I don't know if there's other people like that, but I kind of assume there probably is.
Mike, they even take emails now.
I know, but it's just the principle. It's a personal thing. I just don't like it.
It saves so much money and so much labor.
I agree.
And
Yeah, I agree. It's something that's stuck in the back of my head that I need to hammer to beat it out.
it's very similar to our brush pickup. We used to drive all the city streets every month, and now it's a we do it twice a year, and then they do it on a per call, and
Yeah.
we get a call, we got a list, and the guys drive right to the spot, and you wouldn't believe just the wear and tear on the equipment and the wear and tear on the city streets is a lot. Just think about all those heavy garbage trucks.
No, I know. I know, just my preference, and I'm sure there's no, it is what it is. Is there any other conversation anybody wants to discuss with this on the bulk pickup? I guess we've probably talked about as much of it as we really need to. Things that I was worried about is folks that are moving, and maybe they move on, a Monday, and even though they schedule it, it wouldn't come till Thursday, or they move on a Monday and then it won't come till the next Monday. We have stuff sitting out there, but yeah, those are things that you just have to take as they come along. All right. Unless there's anything else, let's move on to item 8B. Discussion decision on food truck stuff. Misty, could I get you to read the title for me?
City Council Motion 20-5-2-1, directing the city manager to execute an agreement with HG Restaurant Group, LLC, DBA Crawfish Junction, for the provision of seasonal food truck concession services at Sandy Beach Park.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion on this?
So moved.
Steve? And a second?
Second,
Thank you, Vicky. And the motion is adoption, correct? Adoption of this motion, right, Steve? Okay,
That's correct.
perfect. Okay, so who is our point person on this? Is this you, Steve?
I'm probably going to let Dan handle most of this. He's been the one running most with it. We prepared an RFP. It went out. We got responses. We had 2 responses, and one of them has changed their direction of their business and so decided to pull out, but Crawfish is still moving forward. We still leave it open for other proposals if people do want to send in a proposal. I do have one outstanding yet, but Dan has prepared all the related documents to this. So Dan, you ready?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. So Steve gave a pretty good rundown there. The lease agreement or user agreement is in front of you. It's a seasonal permit for a non-exclusive right to operate a food truck concession services out at Sandy Beach Park. We designated areas. There's a lot of work that's gone into the framework of how this is going to look. And then we got struck by COVID and everything basically was put on a standstill. They are planning on starting operations out there likely in June at this point. I don't think they'll have a presence out there for Memorial Day or Memorial Day weekend this weekend, but they still may, assuming that everything goes through tonight. I guess from my perspective, it would have been nice to have a little bit more interest out there to see what other vendors would have been interested in providing some form of facilities or service out there. But what we do have, we had 2 excellent offerings presented to us that we're definitely very comfortable to work with. They've provided all of the appropriate information. The 2 entities were actually Coffee Van Go and then Crawfish Junction operating as HG Restaurant Group. Both have been incredible to work with. Crawfish Junction is very excited about the prospect. The Coffee Van Go on Friday morning informed me that they just weren't prepared to do it at this time. They have some ongoing expansion opportunities at the market that they're looking into, and it's kind of left open. They're aware of where we were at, and they remain interested. They're just not looking to overextend themselves at this point. I guess what I'd like to do is open it up for questions, and let me offer an apology. Last week kind of got away from me. I intended to provide memos on both of the big items in front of you today, and I just didn't get to them. So if I can answer any questions that you have, I'd be happy to.
let you guys go first if you have any questions on this one.
I was a little bit confused about the proposal. Is it only Mondays and Thursdays during the week, or is it Monday through Thursday?
One more time, I couldn't hear you very well. Or maybe Mr.
I was
Foster.
confused.
She asked, was it only Monday and Thursday or Monday through Thursday?
No, they amended their offerings. I believe it's Monday through Thursday. There's going to be some flexibility there, especially in the beginning stages. I believe that it's Monday through Thursday at this point, and they intend to hit a number of Saturdays. But yeah, Monday and Thursday, you're correct, not Monday through Thursday, noon until 5, Monday and Thursday, every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then most Saturdays. They isolate July 4th certainly, but then the note under that says Saturday noon to 5 for the most part. So that kind of gets to the coverage aspect. We had hoped for a little bit more coverage out there, but as this gets started, still having the ability to place individuals so long as it doesn't interfere with the use that's going on out there through this license. I'm pretty, positive. I think that this is going to develop into something that's pretty workable with decent coverage. But yes, Vicki, you're correct. Monday and Thursday specifically.
Is this a non-exclusive agreement? So if you get another food truck that might overlap on times and days? they can
Yes,
still do
there's
it?
going to be some exclusivity, and we're going to exercise control to make sure that the offerings aren't exactly the same if multiple food trucks are there at the same time, some variation in product and service that's offered. And then depending on the individual presence of the food trucks themselves, right now we only have one, we would look to cover multiple times rather than doubling up on individual food trucks on a certain time. So we're going to have some flexibility in scheduling. Crawfish is first on the calendar right now. So I feel some obligation to them with regard to what they've presented. But I think there's a lot of flexibility. There's space identified. Rob Getz, the Director of Parks Department, has expressed his flexibility with regard to the framework of this mechanism. So while it's written on paper here, I believe that this is still kind of a work in progress and a ton of flexibility scheduling moving forward.
Stay. I read through it and I was trying to find all the stuff for conflict resolution in there.
Yeah, everything is really direct you to the Parks Department. If there's any issue, we resolve it that way. Conflicts between the city and the vendor would certainly be addressed that way. And then move on up the ladder eventually to the city council if necessary. They can file suit if necessary. Conflicts between the individual, the vendor and citizens or people that are at the park, that's going to be on the vendor until such point that potentially like the police get involved or something like that if it's significant. But they're operating under a license that the city has control over. That's the point of this lease agreement. And they do have certain obligations to the citizenry that they're serving.
And the one I was really keying in on would be vendor to vendor.
We're going to try and regulate that as much as possible through the Parks Department. The intent in this agreement is to dictate exactly where they're located, to avoid conflicts in scheduling, to avoid conflicts in the offerings, to really have the vendors there working together and being symbiotic rather than, stepping on each other's toes. And this is the first go. So I'm hoping that we're successful there. Right now, we only have one vendor, so I don't think there's going to be that specific dispute, but I would anticipate something as this moves forward.
Okay. Anybody else? Steve, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good. I read through it. It looks good.
Okay. Well, with that being said, I don't have anything either, so we have a motion and we have a second. And we might as well call the vote, please.
Ms. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
motion passed 3-0.
May I ask a question, or am I not allowed to speak at this? This is Torey here. Torey Smith and Crawford.
Oh, well, I guess at this point, we could still, could we suspend the rules now since it's already passed? Tori from Crawfish. Yeah,
The agenda item is on him. Can't he just speak?
You could suspend the rules and have him speak, but it's not really on the topic anymore.
well, we do have a second one that's part of his also. Yeah, so, hey, Tori, what we'd like to do is let's bring up the liquor license and get a
Okay,
motion.
yep.
And then we'll suspend the rules to let you talk on both of them. Is that okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Mike,
Okay. Yep.
because he's the agenda item, we don't need to suspend the rules to let him speak.
You okay with that, Ken? Would you rather have it suspended? I'd rather. Yeah. We'll just suspend the rules, Steve, just to make sure we're okay. Okay. So that brings us to item C. Could I get you to read that for me, Misty?
City Council Motion 20-5-2-2, authorizing the granting of new part-time and renewal part-time Class B beer and Class B liquor licenses to HG Restaurant Group LLC for designated premises at 345 Sandy Beach Road, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, and appointing Torey Smith as agent.
Do we have a motion on this one, a motion of adoption or whatever you want to make it?
I move adoption of motion 20-5-2-2.
Thank you, Vicky. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Could we have a motion to suspend the rules to allow the petitioner to speak?
So moved.
Second.
Second? Thank you. And let's call the vote, please.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Motion passed 3-0.
All right, thank you. Tori, it is all yours right now if you've got something you want to say to us.
I just wanted to kind of clarify. I know Dan had sent me the documents here, including the map of the location. I had spoken to Rob at the Parks Department and had talked about a potentially different location on the property, and I just wanted to clarify that, if that change had made its way up to you guys, or if that was still pending, or how that was.
That we had approved that already, Tori.
Okay, I just never saw an updated document, so I just wanted to clarify that. So,
Yeah, Dan's got a new Exhibit A,
okay.
and it moves you to the next to the.
Closer to the
old-
paycheck there, yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, right next to the paycheck.
Perfect. Yep, I just don't have the updated exhibit, but I just wanted to clarify. That's all I needed to go through. So.
All right.
Okay. If that's it, then we will move on with our discussion of this. So the Class B liquor, does that provide wine and liquor? That's why. And obviously we have the conditions of no glass and stuff like that down there, so all that park rules have to be followed. We have had beer and liquor down there for as long as I remember. And we are looking like we're making storage available down there if it's needed. Do either of you two have anything that you'd like to mention on this item?
If we grant the license, and the storage is using the bait shack for the alcohol, what would we do if we had a second vendor?
If we had a second vendor,
You need to, Dan, is your mic dead?
We work to accommodate with them. There's no exclusive use to the bait shack right now. They're
But
going to have
doesn't
to
this
work with the Parks
license-
Department to figure out what appropriate is. And
But
with regard to
doesn't-
this license does define the bake shack as part of the premises. The intent is not to sell out of that location at that time, or at this time, but for merely storage. And it's something that we're going to have to work together to manage. I'd expect that there's more security put on that facility, and that we track exactly who has access and when.
My statement, Vicky, is the Crawfish Junction is the first ones in. They got the prime location and they got the prime storage. If someone else comes in and requests some type of storage, we'll have to review that. We were looking at containers. A lot of them bring it on their own. So I don't know that we need to be granting a lot of additional liquor licenses here. I know that there was some desire to have liquor, but we don't have to give everybody out there. We're trying to keep it as separate as possible so that we don't have a lot of overlapping services. And so I would look at it from a whole different perspective. A lot of food trucks don't serve any alcohol on most of their locations.
And also to clarify, this is the only liquor license that I have available for issuance right now. There would be obviously the potential for beer licensing, beer only, or fermented malt beverages, I should say, but this is the only liquor one I have at this point.
Does that answer your question, Vicky?
Yeah, that's fine. I would imagine that any subsequent vendors, maybe they have to store their beer in their vehicle or in their food truck and work it out that way.
Yeah. So the only question that comes up in my mind then is liability for stuff that's in that building. I know that if we're using it for storage, we wouldn't have anything in there, but it is a city-owned building, and we're allowing them to store stuff in there. So who is truly liable if stuff is stolen, lost? Who does the inventory on that? Those are things that worry me from a lawsuit type of scenario. So I'm not sure how well we have that covered right now, but
We have indemnification clauses in the course of the document. I think a security at that specific facility needs to be addressed if they're going to store beer, liquor, or anything like that. This needs to be worked out with Torey as this moves forward. Nothing is really set in stone or decided there. We have to create the right framework. Rob Getz is in charge of that property. I think you're right. I mean, we could potentially have liability there. What we're going to do is attempt to limit it through reasonable practices as much as possible. It's his product that he's storing in arguably a leased facility that he's going to be responsible for the security of. That's the way I see it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so any theft would have to go through the police route and whatever from there. Okay. No, that makes sense to me. Anything else? Nope, seeing nothing. Let's call the vote on this one.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
motion passed 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, item D. Discussion decision on developer agreement. Could I get you to read that for us, please, Misty?
City Council Motion 20-5-2-3, directing the city manager to execute a development agreement with Gremar LLC for the development of Tyranena Point Subdivision.
All right, do we have a motion on motion 20-5-2-3?
I move adoption of motion 20-5-2-3.
Thank you. Do we
I'll
have a-
second.
Okay, thank you. How many options today? All right, who wants to jump on this one for us? This.
You
we
want to
still
start,
have a
Dan?
We have a few things we're still waiting on, correct?
Yes, there are items that we're still waiting on.
Okay.
We have a final plat that is being reviewed that needs to be recorded. We need construction plans to be finalized. All of these steps are kind of being taken and have been being taken parallel to the developers agreement. This is for Tyranena Point, which is south on Mud Lake Road, in between 89 and Mud Lake Road. The first phase is approximately 13 parcels that will front Mud Lake Road. There's certain public improvements that are being completed through this document. There are certain public improvements that are being completed through the TID. And then there's a repayment schedule, increment creation schedule that has to be abided by in the course of the development. The expectation is that it's abided by to fund the TID projects that are occurring. There's also a regional water retention area that's kind of in phase one that's going to be completed alongside Mud Lake Road and the first phase of the development that will serve the Mud Lake Road changes in the intersection and the entirety of the development along with the rest of the region. We've been working on this development for a long time, about a year at this point. Mud Lake Road, the reconstruction has been bid. That bid has been awarded. I believe they're itching to get the work started. There's a pre-con that's scheduled for this Thursday. What I have to say about the developer agreement at this point, it's very comprehensive. It contemplates a big development out there and a lot of moving parts. There are still aspects that need to be added to, and there will be changes as we proceed through this process. But it looks like all systems are good to move forward here. With regard to the developers agreement, are there specific questions that you have in your review? If you got through a review, were there concerns that you need to be addressed, or where are we at?
Do you have anything, Steve or Vicky, before I jump on?
I did not at this time.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, I was looking through it and I was trying to figure out how the TID funds are going to be, how it's going to be allocated, how it's going to be used, who is directing the improvements and managing those improvements with the TID funds. And ultimately it'll fall upon us to accept them and then have the repayment schedule set up so it can be repaid. But is that something where we as the city finance, we hold the funds and then pay out as stuff is completed?
Well, Steve is definitely the one to talk about TID projects. My understanding is that that Mud Lake Road is the reconstruction of Mud Lake Road. A large portion of it is a TID project. And then there's a dividing line where south of that portion is a combo project between the TID and the developer. So the developer is actually funding a portion of the reconstruction of Mud Lake Road. And then the TID is basically paying for the rest of that job. But the schedule is for the developer to ultimately pay back those TID expenses through the increment that's created in the development. To answer your question specifically, the city, it's a city-let contract. The city has control over that entire portion of the project, the starting point of the project, the reconstruction of Mud Lake Road.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah,
Mike, the all TID funds are expended by the city. So unless we grant them some dollars, generally what we would do in that case is say, you expend all these dollars, and once you've proven to us that you've actually expended them on the appropriate things, we would reimburse you. So all TID increment comes to the city through taxes. It goes into a fund that Betsy sets up. So it's similar to all the other TIDs. Then what she does is uses that to pay for generally in our case, it's always been debt. So, and again, this year we borrowed, what did we borrow, Betsy? $780 $820,000 for TID number 5. That was all related to Mud Lake Road improvements. And then what we do is we use the increment that's coming in from the development that Loose Homes is doing and use that to pay the debt. If there's more money, that's available to the TID to spend on other TID projects. If there's not enough, we send Corey a bill.
Okay. All right. The other question I had, just trying to understand, one thing is, it's way down on page 23, the schedule of impact fees, and it's the senior center impact fee per property. Is that money that goes to manage the setup downstairs right below me here, senior center, or is that something else?
No, that's downstairs.
Okay. It is, yeah, and that's, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that, because that's what I assumed it was. But I didn't want to run with that unless I knew for sure.
I don't know that that one is, I'd have to review that one because I don't know if that one's still in place.
Okay.
Because I think that came off in 2019.
That is in the agreement. Parks is in the agreement, and sewer.
Yeah,
Scheduled in.
parks, sewer, and water should be in there. The senior center probably is not one.
Yeah, when the building came off.
Yeah, when the debt came off this building, that
Yeah.
I think we made a motion to pull that impact fee.
I wonder if that's, I don't want to throw anything out there, but something for the future is that could be used to help fund a real senior center.
Yeah, impact fees are very, very legally tied through state statute.
Yeah.
So we would have to
Yeah.
identify a project and actually construct it, and then assign impact fees based off of projected usages based on population change. So there's a lot of work that goes into creating an impact fee, especially for something like a senior center.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just want to understand the full scope on how the TID was funding the different parts of this project, because it did say that this project couldn't move along unless there was TID dollars. And I just wanted to understand how that doled out. If it was projects that we as the city were being like a general contractor and making sure that those are done, or if we were handing that off to the builder as the general contractor, and then we were just doing the review of the work. So that's what I really wanted to know about that.
In this case, it's all from the bid, almost all from the bid for and the engineering related to Mud Lake Road and the improvements. Corey is paying for a large percentage of it. About $390,000 of that improvement is still Corey's, because we did it on the split based on, normally a developer pays for 100% of everything within the subdivision. But there was a lot of water and sewer and streets and sidewalks that had to get to that site first. So the TID paid 100% of getting from County Highway A89 intersection down to where his subdivision starts. At that point, we paid for the west half of the road, which abuts North Crest Dairy's property, and he paid for the east half, which butts up against his property. So the first 13 lots in his development are part of that. There's one other feature here, and that's the stormwater detention. They are building, Loose Homes, Gremar is building the stormwater detention basin, and we're reimbursing them 27.5% of their cost, because that's where we're dumping the stormwater from Mud Lake Road improvement.
Okay. All right. If I'm out of questions, so if nobody else has any, we can call the vote on this one.
Ms. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
motion passed 3-0.
All right, thank you. Item E, discussion decision on some DAC cap stuff. Could you read that for me when you're ready, Misty?
City Council Motion 20-5-2-4, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement between the City of Lake Mills and Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection for the local program operator services.
All right, do we have a motion of adoption for motion 20-5-2-4?
So move to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'm assuming this is yours, right, Steve?
Yes, this is mine. The city has been a contractor for the state for about almost 30 years for tank inspections, so underground and above ground tanks, gas, LP, whatever. We do the inspections. We're one of the few agencies in the area that is actually licensed to be able to do that. And it's pretty much kind of like some of the other ones that we do, like the county highway aid, where we see it on a regular basis and we approve it, although our contracts generally run longer for this than the some of the other ones that we normally see, which are like 1 year, which like the Humane Society or the grave openings. But it's very similar. I mean, we've been doing it for so long that most of us don't even think about it anymore.
So who actually does the inspecting?
Right now, the only one that we have that's licensed is Todd Yandre, chief.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I saw the fire department in there and I kind of figured it was somebody there. I didn't know who else it would be. Are we looking at sending anybody else to do that type of training, or is it just, I don't know if it's beneficial?
No, it's beneficial, and I'm sure that we'll look at sending somebody else. We historically had Rick and Todd, but now it's just Todd, and I assume that at some point in time, Captain Theater will probably step up and maybe someone else to get a license for the inspections.
Okay. Do Steve or Vicky, do you have any questions on this one?
No.
Nope.
Okay, let's call the vote, please.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt,
Aye.
motion passed 3-0.
Moves us to item F, resolution 20-23. When you're ready, please read that.
Resolution 20-23, authorizing acceptance of Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Recreational Boating Facilities Grant, RBF 1701, and a Sport Fish Restoration Grant, SFRB F95P70-20.
All right, I will entertain a motion of adoption for resolution 20-23. Or whatever motion you'd like to make in this.
So move to adopt.
Second.
Okay. Steve, you or Betsy, want to talk us through this a little bit?
The city applied for grants from both the DNR for the recreational boating facilities grant and through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, which also goes through the DNR for the sports fishing restoration grant. We were granted $485,000 apiece from each one of those. Now we've got that. This is the contract that guarantees that that money is assigned to us. So that there's a total of $970,000 available for the boat launch reconstruction. Our estimate is that it was $970,000, so 100% of the boat launch will be covered. The only thing that really stands out above that now is the archaeological surveys. They added a substantial amount of additional money. So if you note that when we did our bonds at the last meeting, there was a certain amount of money assigned to the boat launch. And that's specifically to make sure that we get this archaeological survey done and that we get it in an appropriate fashion. So everything here is ready to go. There's one outstanding item yet, and that's the memorandum of agreement that you guys kind of conditionally approved at a prior meeting. It is still being held up by the Potawatomi Nation of Forest County. And as soon as that gentleman gets his report in, we can proceed. I believe that what happens is that once they have acknowledged acceptance of the letter from SHPO, they have 30 days to respond. If they don't respond, then it's considered approved. Because this gentleman was on furlough and wasn't available, and he first came to work Monday, that 30 days started Monday. So they're going to try and get him to respond so that we can get moving quickly. But, you know, if he takes the full 30 days, I guess he's out for a while. But at least within 30 days, he will approve that. So, or make some type of comments, and we'll have an idea of what the MOA is and whether it's ready to be signed or if we need to look at it again. So.
Okay. This also covers the removal of the old boat launch after we're completed and we have the other one open, correct?
This covers all the work that was in the design work, which does redo the old boat launch somewhat. We kind of leave some of it there because we were looking at using it for maybe kayaks or canoes. So we didn't remove all of it. We did reshape the asphalt in the area and remove the bait shack that was in that proposal, which we don't have to do if we decide to do some other things. But it does cover like the invasive species boat washing sites. And things along that line, and parking and separation and all the things that we'd originally talked about. So you guys have seen that at least 10 times now.
Yeah, well, at least. And some of us may have read it also a few times on our own. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was out there in case anybody's listening and was curious about that. All right. Do you folks have any other questions, Vicky or Steve?
No,
I'm good.
Okay. Let's go ahead and call a vote on this, please.
Mr. Foster, Ms. Schmidt,
aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
motion passed 3-0.
Thank you. And resolution 20-24, when you are ready, would you please read that title?
Resolution 20-24, petition for county highway aid.
All right, motion of adoption, please.
I move adoption of resolution 20-24.
Thank you. And second.
Second?
And this is, well, we do this every year. Basically, we're putting money in an account with the county and then they're matching the money for us. Is this about the same value? I just, year after year, I just can't.
It doesn't change much. I think when we originally started, it was like 2,000, and now it's what?
Yeah, 3,297.
Yeah, so it increases slightly every year.
Yeah. But it allows us to set aside some money and get a little bit of money from the county for some projects that they get first bid on, correct?
Yes. Used to be that they had a full option to bid on it, and we had to at least give them a fair shot. Now, with the way the state law reads, they aren't really available for very much work other than maintenance. So generally what we've used this for is the oil and chip program that we use them for, because that's a maintenance program.
Sure. Okay. Any questions, Steve or Vicky?
No,
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you. Let's call a vote, please.
Ms. Schmidt,
aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
motion passed 3-0.
All right, item 9, recommendations for future agendas. I know we'd like to talk about a possible RFP and then maybe a poll.
The RFP probably wouldn't come out until August or September.
Yeah.
Um, Unlike what it was originally mentioned, it's not a one-page document. It's actually 50. So I have been working on it. We may, generally what we do is we look at the proposal from John's and then make a decision on whether we're going to accept or reject. And based on that, we can move forward with a RFP actually ready to go. If you guys decide you want to do an RFP, we can do that this year.
Okay, yeah. I'd like to at least look at it, the possibility of doing it.
Okay.
I know that they have bent over backwards. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I'd like to think about having that as an option. And then discussing some type of polling. So you said you had some folks that have contacted you in the past. So I'm assuming you can get some stuff together for us on that for next meeting. And the other thing that I would like to discuss is the process for boat launch assignments and how long they're good for. And I understand that's a parks project, but I think it would be beneficial if they looked at it and then brought any type of proposals forward. I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Fields?
On the parks end?
Yeah,
We just did that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm sorry. As far as looking at our process for the list for folks that are getting these boat slips and possibility of changing that process. I understand the frustration that these folks are going through. I don't own a boat, but I understand the frustration because I do know some people that have waited almost 25 years on the list. And I'm not so sure that's the best way to treat a commodity in our community. Should everybody have some sort of an equal chance to these every year? Or do we just keep going the way they are? Person gets it for their life as long as they keep paying it. I don't know, but I think that's something Parks Department should look at first and discuss and see if they want to bring some other change up about that.
If they're
Okay.
gonna look at that policy, sorry.
No, I can say I can bring it, put it on our agenda item for our June meeting.
Okay, thank you. Vicky, go ahead.
While they're looking at the boat slip rental policy, they should also look at the same time at the fence parking.
That's parking, yeah. Good point. Yeah, because I think that works the exact same way, doesn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, and as I look through the stuff that we have that's on paper, it doesn't, nothing I saw comes out really and says, you get this for your life. I just couldn't
Yeah,
find
and-
anything that said that.
And I don't know that we want to put Sandy Beach Park or the Sandy Beach Mobile Home Park on equal footing with the city residents either. So if
Yeah.
we're redoing the mobile home park and we're looking at this, maybe they should look at it from the very beginning and see what makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I agree with that. Since citizens are here most of the time out of the year, you know, it's something that everybody here in the city should get a chance once or twice in their lifetime to be able to have the opportunity to use. And right now, it doesn't seem like that's the case. Do you folks, do you guys have anything else that you're thinking for future agendas?
We definitely need to go into closed session.
Closed session, yeah. That's gonna be based on Vicky's comfort with it and where we can actually have the closed meeting. So I am assuming we could probably do it in here okay as a closed meeting. So you can have your 6+ feet if that would work for you, Vicky.
Yeah, and also, I like the idea of having it be masks are optional, maybe, or even encouraged.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Most everybody should have some kind of mask, and I don't see a problem with us doing that between us as city council members. I don't think anybody will have a problem wearing it. If that makes you feel better, I am all for it. So
Yeah, it would
that's
raise my comfort level.
good.
So we'll look at a meeting in
Yep.
June. Okay.
Okay. Steve, do you have anything for us?
Nope, that should do it for tonight.
Okay. Steve Wilkie, do you have anything for us?
We'll have an annexation document. We'll probably have a zoning amendment from Plan Commission. Is there anything else, Misty?
Like, there'll be the consent agenda for the liquor licenses, public hearing for the Sidewalk Cafe, just the annual renewals.
Okay. All right. If that is it, I am going to adjourn us.